Welcome to everyone, and thanks so much for spending this Saturday afternoon and evening with me to talk about poetry, nature, and the nature of our times, an anthology edited by Aileen Cassinetto, Luisa A, Igloria, and David Hassler. We are here to read poems from the book and discuss the art of writing about the natural world and our place in it. We'll start with each of you reading your poem as it appears in the anthology. David Simon, our technical editor, will put the list of readers in the chat for you to refer to. You're welcome to give us a short introduction to the poem if you'd like. After the reading, we'll have another discussion about your poems in the book and the book itself, writing nature-inspired poems, poems about place, eco-poetry, and whatever else you like to call this kind of writing. I invite you to participate deeply in the conversation. I'm delighted to be here with two of the editors and a number of friends and fellow poets I'm very happy to meet, all represented in this groundbreaking book. So let's start with reading your poems. And the first reader is going to be Maw Shein Win. And she is going to be reading her poem, and the title is?
The title is Observation Log. And thank you, Phyllis, for organizing. And it's so lovely to be here with all fellow poets. And I also want to congratulate Aileen, Luisa, and David on the good news on winning the American Legacy Book Award for this anthology. The title of this poem is Observation Log, and it is written in memory of my dear friend, Annabelle Port. Observation Log. Warmed a nest in my balmy palm, placed it back in its ginkgo tree, turned aside and took rest for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. And our next reader will be Traci Brimhall, reading her poem Amor Fati. And I did want to ask, I forgot to ask Ma, but if you want to say where you're reading from, that would be lovely.
I live in El Cerrito, California. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Traci.
I'll be reading tonight from Manhattan, Kansas, but the background I have chosen is from Bighorn Canyon in Wyoming, which is where I was when I wrote the poem. Amor fati means you must love your fate. Amor fati. The vultures are a syntax of erasures, shadows stripping the deer's body down to a crooked temple of bones. The poppies are out here getting away with murder because they know beauty is its own camouflage. Why build a campfire at sunset? Can't you see the sky is bright and awake? Live and hunt and pray and leave only footprints. The mountain splits the belly of the cloud, but it heals the injury as it moves. I talk to myself and I dance alone because it's happier that way. The high desert is quiet today, except for a few raving prophets and wild horses. I want God's vision of home for me, but that might be my own body. Stones slip on their slow moss sweaters. I hear water, but can't see it. I find a bear's tracks, but never meet it. The rainbow is behind me with its promises. Where is the future today? I walk another circle. I am made new and still myself. Crickets announce the night even before the moon decides to rise, the early stars already arriving to warm up for their choreography of stillness. The cleaned ribs of the deer reach for an old idea of heaven. A vulture flies the deer's heart into the empty arms of a tree.
Thank you so much. And our next reader will be Aileen Cassinetto, reading In Half Moon Bay.
Thank you, Phyllis. I'm reading from San Mateo. which is about half an hour away from Half Moon Bay. In Half Moon Bay, there are all these halves at the edge of the sea, like half a heart of shore, briefly cradling a sea star that has bravely lost its arms. When its stone coral mouth is already drained of seawater, its spine of honeycombed lime would be the last to go. At low tide, the feisty and starry flounder leaves tracks in pursuit of ghost shrimp, while the shy and snowy plover wades in and out of waves, not playing but foraging for sandhoppers, its fortune tied with the tides like sand and moonshine. But count on the bread to still rise on century-old bricks, 6 days a week, like goodwill or good fortune inside a wave. Thank you again, Phyllis, for hosting us, and thank you to everyone for being here today.
Thanks, Aileen. And our next reader is Joe Cottonwood reading Because a Redwood Grove.
Okay, thank you. There's a story behind this poem, but I guess I'll save it for the discussion later. Oh, just picture it on a giant billboard that's taller than you are in a redwood grove in London, in Kew Gardens, London. Because, I'm in La Honda. Maybe you already said that. Because a redwood grove. Because naturally, upon entering, you lower your voice. Because through branches on high, fluffs of fog drift in shafts of sunlight. Because you've met this feeling in cathedral, mosque, temple. Because a redwood seems always to know what it's doing. Because your body feels small. Because your spirit grows large. Because a redwood, with its power, will never preach, makes no demands, sips from the clouds, swallows the sunlight, shelters the chipmunk, the owl, you. Because a redwood takes the long view. Because the redwood withstands flame, has kinship to stone, to river and earth, to the patience of stars, to the holy. Because you forgot the question, but a redwood grove is the answer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joe. And our next reader in this richness of readers is Caroline Goodwin, reading The Mechanics.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thanks for bringing us together. I'm so happy to be here. The Mechanics for Tony and Dustin. Sorry, just get it. Okay, there we go. In the bottom of the bag, in the glass, in the bottle, in the starlight, and the smallest constellation, in the soft gills, in the underside of the frond, in the hank of black beads, in the melody rising from the meadow, folded and coming up again, amphibious, pearly throat, in the screw gun and the wrench, in the satellite over the beach, spokes of the wheel and flat screen, in the sand sliding under us, in the sand falling over us, fine as flour, in the paw print, an arrowhead at the end of the lane, in the foxglove, in the circle of dust, in the object at rest, in the shade, in the surf, in the vector traveling north, the kitchen table of blue cloth and cypress green as jade, in the pivot and the radius, in the smoke rolling down, in the centipede, the iridescent sensation of all its legs, in the tent pitched in a bright meadow, in the breeze, in the firelight that warmed us orange and red, in the momentum, in the moth head, in the death head, in the talons of the owl, in the folds of cloth where we found it, where we left it lying in its finery, in its wrecked wings. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next reader is Luisa A. Igloria, reading Bat's French Kiss with Mouthfuls of Blood.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Phyllis and David, for putting this together. And thank you to all the poets for joining us this afternoon. I am reading from Norfolk, Virginia, where I teach on the faculty of the MFA Creative Writing program at Old Dominion University, and also with the Muse Writers Center, which is a nonprofit community here in Norfolk. So the poem that's in the anthology must have been inspired by listening to one of those programs I often come across while driving and listening to public radio. Bat's French Kiss with Mouthfuls of Blood. A pair tiptoe fly across the soft dark, then do a kind of running jump, landing on the cow's nape. What does it feel, or does it feel at all? Or is it mostly unbothered? It only shakes its head a little, tethered as it is to the fence when they begin their blood feast. Saint Augustine wrote, "Inhabit, and you shall be inhabited. Dwell, and you shall be dwelt in." You could call it love, this investment in another, the shared appetite for what sustains life. But the bats are only being true to their nature. If they lick each other's mouths, it's precious currency rather than a kiss. Not ardor, but a social bond. It's possible to languish from a lack of love, even die of a broken heart. In many accounts, the love-struck sport a pallor akin to being drained of blood.
Thank you. And I guess the next one is me. So I'm going to read my poem called Lecture on the New California Weather. And I'm in Palo Alto, California, where we're having some pretty crazy weather these days and for quite a while now. Lecture on the New California Weather. Say wind, say blast, as the butterfly bush leans toward the house and trembles, as the oak lays down roots othered from soil. Say flow, Santa Ana, sundowner. Say fire, say camp, Dixie, Calder, Eaton. Say rattles and needles, acorns popping, firecrackers. Say eagle screech. Say raptor eyes, orange crackle, smoky hisses into lungs. Say asthma, say haze, say rubble, say death. They say drought, currents of reproach on shrunken orange trees. They say it won't rain. Powdered earth is said to sneak under screens, underfoot scrape of dusty bones on raw wooden floors. Next year, they say air river. They say floods in basements over riverbanks. Say El Nino is storm with troopers of mud and boulders said to hurl themselves off mountains into whatever else is in the way. And next is Perie Longo, a pair of sandhill cranes in the rain.
Thank you, Phyllis and David. Oh, all right. I saw a little message. Sorry. For putting this together. I have enjoyed reading this book since I received a copy and enjoying everybody's poems tremendously. I'm living in Santa Barbara, where I'm reading from, and my poem is titled A Pair of Sandhill Cranes in the Rain. And it takes place in Lake Amybel, Wisconsin, which is where my sister lives, about 20 miles outside of Milwaukee. They didn't care for me, running in a flurry toward them like a child with oh and ah. as they posed aloof, dreamlike, in a wash at the edge of the lake. A whisper the other side of the glass door, where I'd come to visit my older sister, anxious to comb for something lost from early life. I've missed her, longed to be close again, as when we'd lift mother's flapper dresses from the old metal trunk and play dress-up, dance the Charleston. Look at us now, both of us with fractured hips, slowed but making our way, like those two cranes that appeared from nowhere. I could not resist their regal stance, heads crimson-capped, long thin necks as if nothing could stir them, until I aimed my camera phone their direction, and off they glided behind the tall stand of cattails in shade of maple, just tripped rust overnight. Breathless, I edged round the bend, and as they eased forward, I clicked, their escape in hand, and that was that. Until later, I found myself bereft for disturbing their peace. Yet this morning, once more they appear in a sudden downpour, gazing across the rumpled lake, one pointed one direction, one the other. My sister and I share their silence, shoulder to shoulder, rain ticking against the window, nothing between.
Thank you, Perie. And next, Robbi Nester reading Hot.
Hi, I wrote this poem in response to articles in the newspaper. I think it was the New York Times, but it was everywhere. Hot. Yesterday, large birds, vultures, and golden eagles fell out of the sky in Arizona, stricken down by heat. I once held an eagle owl, light on my arm despite its impressive size. With all that armature alone, curved talons, beak like a scimitar, it should have weighed my arm down like a stone. And yet it didn't, barely enough to bow a branch. I learned that hollow feathers buoy the birds in flight, insulate in winter and in summer, shield the body pink and diminished underneath all that striated plumage. Yet this architecture didn't help. What had been light fell like a sudden sandbag to the ground, breaking windshields, knocking grazing cattle to their knees. Think of the canaries miners used to carry caged into the dark. They tell us what is to come, but we know already from experience. Where hillsides dry to brittle brown, flames will rise like spirits, making their own weather, taking down the tallest trees. Frowning at the cloudless sky, we vow to change, and yet our lives continue as they always have. Morning shower, feeding the cat, checking the latest news. Imminent disaster cannot blunt the appetite or quell the thirst, keep the ants from finding the ripest peaches in the bowl. Routine won't help us when the very air ignites, when birds, the messengers that go before us, fall from the sky.
Thank you, Robbi. And our next reader is Mistee St. reading In Defense of Invasive Species.
Hi, thank you, Phyllis, and for coordinating this, and also to the editors and the publishers of this anthology. It's just valuable work in these changing times, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So I'm reading from Juneau, Alaska. I am an Alaskan born and raised, but not Southeast Alaskan, which is different for me. I don't need to say much about this poem. It's about European starlings, they're invasive species to pretty much everywhere. And when I wrote it, I was thinking about how much I actually really love starlings, and I find them beautiful and actually adorable. So I started this as a poem again in defense against them, and then became more about defense against invasive species. But then as I wrote and I revised, I realized I was also thinking about us as humans, as invasive species or as wanderers, and in that regard, what does it mean to be from a place, and how do you end up belonging to a place? Which is brings me back to being in Southeast Alaska, which is very different from the interior Alaska. In defense of invasive species, it's not your fault, little starlings, brought here by a Shakespeare enthusiast. No, it wasn't your choice to leave your native lands. Yes, you mob your way through crops, converge in our cities, race your way to the nesting cavities of bluebirds and woodpeckers, sometimes even parasitic, stashing a desperate, sunny blue egg with another to raise. Oh, but your name, starling, like an adolescent star, raucous and insistent, and your shine, your slick, oil-spilled plumage, those white dotted ellipses, a scattered pattern, that quick stride, those stubby legs, square fanned tail bobbing as you stab for worms and seeds, stocky body made for muscling up, little bully, passerine, songbird, language learner. You take off in some coded lingo of community, wheel and turn, expand and contract, trail off, come together and settle. So common now, so overlooked. I often stop to watch this easy, faithful unity. I long for that landing. From just a few birds you spread across this wide country and made a living like any of us. Maybe you'd steal the sun and rain from us all. To live is to consume, and we are indeed thieves ourselves, are we not? Most of us scattered settlers too. No, I cannot fault you for thriving. It's what a good life does. And this is luscious and fruity, insecty soil, this land, this earth. Lately, I've been wondering how any of us can prove that we no longer long, and what it takes to belong, here and anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next poet is Ingrid Taylor, reading Communion. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis and David. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today. I'm reading my poem Communion from Las Vegas, Nevada. My brother and I dug for worms, our knees furrowing the farmer's dirt, our nails blackened by its bounty. And where we found them, we cradled them as pets, admired their mucoid segments, let them curl between our fingers. We envied how they navigated the dense earth, the way the clay embraced their lucent bodies, smooth cylinders that tilled the soil, shaped and unshaped the netherworld beneath our feet. And before the sun shriveled their pink skin, we returned them to their burrows, enough for a moment to touch their dark mystery. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then so there's one more reader who is not here, but the poem is by Abby Wheeler called Geese, and Mistee St. is going to read for Abby.
Hi again. I'm happy to read Abby's poem Geese. She couldn't be here, but she and I know each other, and we spent maybe about a year writing each other letter poems. And actually, this was one of her letter poems to me. So as I was rereading in order to prepare for this today, it occurred to me that we both wrote about these common birds, which I find interesting. Um, so anyways, I'll just start from there. So this is Abby Wheeler's poem, Geese. I see them nearly every day of the cold months, gathered on the golf course greens, congregating the way geese do. They get a bad rap here, the way they clog the parking lots of our office parks, poop on our cars and squawk like we're imposters as we try to squeak by. But these winter mornings, I linger at the bathroom window and quietly thrill at the thought of them saying, in their honking goose talk, "You think this is yours?" A story old as air says it was the geese who, on their downy backs, ushered home the earth's first woman, our first friends in an unfamiliar realm. My father has gone and I can't imagine where. Consider a commemorative tattoo, even though he never liked them. A broad, billowy wing, a backyard bird. Nothing is good enough. This I know surely as the geese will leave in the spring, forever back and forth, covering the distance between.
Wow. Okay. Well, what a treasure trove. And isn't it really amazing to be together and reading these poems out of this book? Yeah, I see a lot of hearts on the screen. Yeah. So I'm so excited to have you here with your poems, so we can talk, more in depth about the poems and writing about nature in general. And I thought we should start actually with the two editors who are here, if that's okay with you guys, um, and um, and ask you some questions and have you talk more about what it was like to bring this project to a start and bring it to fruition, and how, I mean, it must have been quite a saga. So, and I do want to mention that David isn't here, and so if you want to tell us a little more about David, I don't know David, or how he became involved, but yeah, whatever you'd like to say. And then let's spend a little more time with the editors, and anybody in the room can raise your hand and ask a question. So thanks. Yeah, just jump in.
Jump in. You asked about David. David Hassler is the executive director of the Wake Poetry Center at Kent State in Ohio. And he is a wonderful poet and a wonderful human being. And we are so lucky to have him work alongside us on this anthology. And I think it was around end of spring, Aileen, correct me if I'm wrong, of 2024 that we sent out a call for submissions for an anthology which we envisioned as a companion to the first National Nature Assessment, which is now being undertaken by the Nature Record, which is also a national initiative, but one led by Dr. Philip Levin, who is professor of practice at the University of Washington and also lead scientist for the Nature Conservancy of Washington. And that organization's goal is to bring together knowledge and storytelling and public participation, which hopefully will inform decisions, support communities, and emphasize really the importance of nature in public health, in economic stability, in all facets of our life. So Philip Levin describes the work that he and the Nature Record does as rooted in science, and also now aided by the work we have done with him too, because he wrote the introduction to the book by poetry. And I'll toss it to Aileen.
Thank you, Luisa and Phyllis. I think what I want to say is that this project really grew from relationships. Luisa and I and Jeremy did the
Oh,
first
yeah.
anthology, Dear Human, and we launched it at the AGU, which is a conference of scientists in San Francisco, I think in December 2023. it was the companion to the Fifth National Climate Assessment. And at that conference, I was nudged towards Phil Levin to see if, because he was leading the National Nature Assessment, to see if he would be open to the same project. And so um, it just grew from that, from this story of poets and scientists wanting to tell the story of our land and waters, but not have poetry just be a way to explain science. It's rather it's a way to be part of the conversation. And also regarding this anthology, I have to say we accepted over 1,300 poems for the online gallery, and for I think for close to 6 months, we read each one of them. I think almost for almost three times each. It we wanted to be sure that the anthology reflected the diversity of our lived experiences, and so we finally selected 200, more than 200 for the anthology, and
210.
210, and over that uh, for a year we worked closely, and Luisa and David were such, are such generous and brilliant poets and co-editors and friends. And I think it shows in, I think when people who really like each other work on a project together, it shows. So I just want to say it's a labor of love, um, despite all the everything we've gone through when after the NNA was defunded.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also just want to add to what Eileen said. So we may have chosen 210 poets for the print anthology, but all of the other poems which did not get into the book are still online on the gallery. And after the book was or just about to go to print, we decided also that we would continue accepting submissions for the online gallery. And I think what we envisioned was for that to still serve as a kind of living archive of poetry that speaks to these themes that we were interested in bringing to a wider public. And we've been really so pleased, more than pleased, to see that so many, besides emerging poets and established poets, including our first Asian American U.S. Poet Laureate, Arthur Z., and the founder of Poets for Science, Jane Hirschfield, who are also in the book, we have so many contributors who include, among others, I can't name them all, I can't remember them all, but there are researchers in ecology, there are wildlife trackers, there are science directors, there is a commercial fisherman, there is a teacher of atmospheric physics, college freshman, there's an oceanographer, there's a translator, there's a carpenter in the book, and many of them also expressed to us how thrilled they were to have been selected for the anthology, and also for many of them that this was a first, like really first experience of getting something that they created with words into print. So I think overall, we're just so amazed by the kinds of responses we got and are so happy we get to share them with more people through the book and through the online presence.
Yeah, that is such a generous way to do it. I don't, do you know of anybody else who has set up an anthology like that where you have an online, uh, um, publication in
Yeah,
addition to the book?
yeah, actually, and I think this is partly what really drew us also to the work of David Hassler, because he had also, during COVID years, co-edited an anthology of poems addressing that period of experience that we all shared called Dear Vaccine. And that also is still up online. And he has a wonderful team of artists and designers that help to make these beautiful pages, which we all can go to see with just one click on our computer or on our mouse.
Yeah, well, please thank him for that idea.
Yes,
It's
yes.
really, I hope people continue to do that. So I have more questions. Misty has a question, yeah? So if you want to
Well,
unmute
if you
now.
want to, I mean, this was sort of piggybacking on or something I was thinking
Oh,
about.
please, yeah, go ahead, Misty.
Okay. So I was thinking about, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of pressure right now on artists to write politically from a political standpoint, which I struggle with. Um, but I was rereading the foreword by Philip, and then something that you guys were just saying made me really think about how could we, like, so poetry, like these poems are, all of them I feel like are political poems in a way because we're paying attention. We're writing from awareness and from just maybe small moments. Um, they're not overtly political, but they are in what they represent or signify. So what could happen? And I don't, this is like just an open-ended question, and maybe there's not an answer, but what could happen if we really take a holistic view as we move forward as human beings and societies, um, with blending art and science and culture and the literary world and philosophy, and like how could we move towards a better future that's preserving our earth and all the other wonderful things that we could do without like the separation that science is science and a poem is a poem and a um, culture is different. Like how could we move forward? And so projects like these I find really exciting, and to learn more about Philip's um, uh, the what's it called, the thing that he's a part of, the United by Nature initiative, like that, just that's, yeah, it's so fascinating to me. I don't know, maybe you guys can just speak more to that, or if there's any response to that. It's not really so much a question, but just a thought.
Sure. Do you want to go, Aileen?
No, I just want to encourage everyone to leave a comment on the Nature Record website. They're actually open for comment, and it's just whatever you notice in your own backyard or your own communities. It will really help because for me, being part of this project, the Nature for Times, it's a lot of people have asked me how I ended up here because well, it's really a way for me to bring my personal story and my diaspora into this evolving story of America's land and water. And so I also wanted people to see themselves in the story that is unfolding. Um, and and one way to participate aside from publishing our work is to be also connected with um, the nature record and make sure it's as comprehensive as it can be, that it's as diverse as it can be, that it includes all of our stories. um,
Yeah. I just want to
and
quickly
yeah.
add also to what you're saying, Eileen. It also speaks to my story since we share a similar background. But you were asking Misty about what can we do to make more of a defined stance towards active and aware action. And you're right about saying that everything is political. And so there's a lot of movements around us now that use words like resistance. And I think of resistance in terms of some additional meanings. It's not just pushing back, but it's pushing back in very specific ways. So for instance, just if you think you're just reading a poem, you're also resisting something, the impulse to just do something more quickly or to the impulse not to read at all. or the impulse to not notice in a more intimate way. So those are small acts of resistance, but they add up to the larger picture and the sense of what we can do. Because a lot of people think it's just me. I'm only me. I'm just a little, particle in the huge web that we all occupy. What can I possibly do? And I think those are ways to think about what we can do right where we are.
Yeah, that's great. I just listening to you guys is really, really inspiring. And I was thinking, for me, and there's a number of poems that we heard today, I think, that are in memory of people. So the grieving is coming in there, and the way that we're grieving for our natural world and how things are being destroyed right in front of our eyes. Me, I tend to be angry. I get really angry. So, and then of course all the other emotions too. But I was thinking, well, I wrote a poem that had the anger in it and the fear, and then okay, so then you write it, and then it gets in a book, and I'm really thrilled about that. And then, so how does it, I think we can maybe try to address also, like, for everyone to talk about this and think about it. It's like, so then what's it like from there? How does it percolate into something that really matters? And I think this book really matters. So, trying to figure out how to make it matter and what to do. And we're doing that today, which is terrific. And it really excites me. And what, just in general, what can we do? Because I'm so big on feeling helpless, um, and all the other emotions that I imagine we're all feeling. So there's a couple of people. Caroline, I think, is next.
Yes, I do have a quick question for the editors. And also, I just want to say how honored and grateful I am to be part of this beautiful physical piece of art. I mean, it is so well put together. It just feels really nice to hold it, and I'm just super grateful. I forgot to say I'm zooming in at the moment from Petaluma, California, but I know it's may be not quite true, but I identify as a lifelong Alaskan myself. Although I think you never really leave Alaska, but I have lived in California for a minute. But anyway, I saw on my social media that this beautiful anthology we're celebrating just won some big literary prize. So would love to ask Aileen and Luisa about that piece of news.
Well, yeah, we just we won the what is it, Legacy
American Legacy.
Book Award.
Yes.
And um yeah, we entered the anthology in several competitions. We're still it's a finalist for Forward
Mm-hmm.
Indies as well, and they're going to announce the winner in June.
Yeah.
Um,
So these are, I guess, post-publication
yeah,
opportunities, which Paloma Press, just like other presses, seek out and enter titles that they believe would benefit from being nominated. And so we were very pleased just last night, right, Eileen, to learn that our anthology won this for the poetry anthology category. And we are waiting to hear about the finalist placing for the Indie Book Award in June, I believe. Yeah. So what I know about the American Book Awards is that they've been around for around 23 years. They're based in LA, I think.
yeah.
And they're also connected with something called the American Book Fest or American Book Festival.
Yeah, I mean, awards are nice to have, and I guess it helps you um, when you introduce yourself to institutions. I like going to county meetings and city council meetings to do public comment. And so because I feel our work as poets, our words frame what counts as nature or crisis. And so it doesn't change policy, but it shapes people's imagination, and I think it counts a lot, especially in these times.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and that's just amazing. I'm so glad for the timing that it happened yesterday. And here we are today. That's so exciting. Yeah.
So congratulations to all of you too,
Yeah,
because you were part of
thank you,
this.
All
everyone.
right. And I think I can I really think I can speak for everyone to second Caroline's words about the gratitude and honor to be chosen in the book. It's very, very wonderful and exciting. So thank you for that.
But Phyllis, like I said, we lived with these poems for almost a year, very intimately for close to 6 months. And I love all of the poems. I love all of the sections. And then there's a section on bright spots.
Yeah. I want to say
Right.
something about that too.
Yeah.
The sections in the book. The book is divided into 4 sections whose titles are directly inspired by the section headings in the National Nature Assessment. So, nature and well-being, self and community, nature and heritage, nature, risk and change, and now and in the future, bright spots, which is the final section of the book. And
Yes.
And I
Caroline
think
has a comment.
We want to
Joe's,
leave with bright spots for sure. Yeah.
and I think Joe's poem is in that section.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Is anyone else's here in that section? I don't know, but
But Caroline just put an Adrian Rich quote into the chat.
yes. Do
We
you want
may
to read
feel
that?
bitterly how little our poems can do in the face of seemingly out of control technological power and seemingly limitless corporate greed, yet it has always been true that poetry can break isolation, show us to ourselves, yes, when we are outlawed or made invisible, remind us of beauty where no beauty seems possible, remind us of kinship where all is represented as separation. That's so true.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Caroline. That's something to put on your screen, isn't it? To remind yourself every day. Perie, did you have a comment, Perie Longo, or a question? I saw your hand was raised before.
I had a comment sort of that came to me as Luisa and Aileen were talking. I am on the board of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation as poetry chair. I was brought onto the committee because the man who started the Peace Foundation, Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, loved poetry. And so we, have a poetry contest every year to get people writing about peace. And so it's a political organization whose goal is to get rid of nuclear weapons. And it's based in Santa Barbara, but the woman who's the new president now, because David passed away 3 years ago, is in New York. And what I was thinking is this, its goal is to save our planet from nuclear holocaust. And we are now 89 seconds away, they say, from that in our political climate. So it made me think how it would be wonderful if there'd be some way that we could think about bringing that together with the art. And I heard a talk the other night by one of the academics, and Richard Falk, and he said it's when we bring together the scientific and the academic with the civic that we are actually accomplishing something. Because if you don't bring along all the people to do their little role, which you, Luisa, you talked about it, and your role is very big, but we all feel so small and incompetent and unhelpful in this world. And I love thinking about bringing together all these different larger organizations in conversation with each other. And I just think that's really important. And I'm going to tell the Peace Foundation all about you in this book.
It sounds like that would be a wonderful collaboration with Poets for Science.
Yes.
Yeah.
Poets for Science has a gathering in Kent, Ohio from November 12 to 14, and they are actually taking proposals for panels. So it's like a little, I guess, like a conference, but it is the language that they use because conference sounds so stuffy, right? So it is the Poets for Science gathering, which I love. So we hope you will look into it.
Is there a website for that?
Yeah, just I think if you just
Poets
type
of
in
Science?
right, Poets for Science gathering, you will find the link to those pages.
I think if you go to Kent State University's website, you would find it there.
What website?
Kent State.
Kent State.
Yeah.
Or the Wick Poetry Center, which is in Kent State U.
That's helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have a question for the poets. And Traci has a question too.
Yeah, Traci does too. Yeah, so how about if Traci goes and then we'll get your question, yeah? Welcome, Traci, to the conversation.
I was just, all of these comments in the chat and in the conversation are just making me, it is really more of just like one of those annoying, I raise my hand and I have a comment, not a question, but maybe that's nice to bring that to an end and pivot to a question for poets. But, we're talking about, poets for science and this need for the sense of connection, but science used to be written in verse until the Enlightenment, when they decided that prose was the more rational form, and science needed to be rational. And that's also because the soul used to be considered a part of the body, and that's also when things like dissection and stuff opened up, because they no longer felt like spirit was an important factor of the body in Western thought and heritage. But I also feel like the poet's job being the job of attention is the job of science. And even if people don't, because I also think a poem is an experience, not necessarily, language that people have to read. And I always feel like it's my job to remind people to pay attention for 3 minutes a day, even if those 3 minutes aren't the listening to a poem. My goal is to listen to 3 minutes of bird speech a day, and get better at my bird calls. Sorry, my dog is also joining. Dog would also like
lovely.
attention.
Welcome your dog.
We don't want to be separated either.
What's your dog's name?
His name is Zeno, for Zenobius the Greek, who is the father of paradox. So, and
there you go.
He's a little paradoxical being. But I do feel like more and more we have conversations on the internet or have that sense of division. And we are using the internet for a moment of connection here. But since it was mentioned, both the gathering in person and also this online gathering, and this importance of finding the connection, because I think it's when people believe they are separate from the world that they can abuse it. But I think attention teaches us how connected we are to each other and to the world. So whether that's through verse or not, I think the spirit of poetry is the spirit of attention. And I think that's what I hope I share with people all the time, even if it has no line breaks in it. That is strengthening this union.
I love everything you've said, Traci. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding us too that at one point there wasn't such a rigid division between all of these things and I think what we're seeing is those traps of symmetry that we imagine when things are discrete and separate from each other. So I agree with everything you've said. Thank you.
So let's have your question to us, and then I'd like to dig into the poems a little more too. So yeah, so why don't we hear it? It was Aileen, was it your question or Luisa? I can't remember now.
Oh, I just wanted to ask the poets where and how they find joy in during times.
Well, I can start with that. So I just went to an exhibit it's in Palo Alto actually, with an art. He's a watercolor um, artist named Tony Foster. He's 80 years old, and he is trekked literally on his feet all over the world with these tiny little box of watercolor paints, and he puts his the what do you call it um, the thing you paint on the paper or whatever into a tube, and he takes everything on his back, and he's been doing this, for quite a long time as he's been aging, and he sits down in one place and paints these magnificent scenery. Um, and now there's a museum in Palo Alto. He lives in England. I think there's more. Um, there may be a museum in England as well. And he's doing it to preserve these things that we may lose. And actually, I just heard him talk, and a couple of places he's painted, very sadly, are not passable anymore for various reasons. So that gave me so much joy and inspiration. Hearing him at 80, just in terms of aging in a way that's really inspiring and exciting, as you can physically, um, for each of us. And this idea that what he's doing, he's just one person, but he really, I think, can make a difference. You're so moved by what he's doing, when you find out the connection and how he gets permission from various tribal, indigenous cultures and reservations to sit in their land and paint their scenery. And anyway, I won't go on and on, but I could, but I want to let somebody else talk. So that's been just really top of my mind lately. Yeah, who else? Who else has something that it's hard to find joy right now, huh?
Thing.
Ingrid.
I the back of my house is flush with a big field, which they were going to use to build 3 new schools. But the population of Santa Barbara dropped. And then they also found out it was Chumash land. So it wouldn't be a good idea to do that. And so anyway, the whole thing was forgotten. I've lived in this house for 52 years, knowing that someday it would be sold. And here it can't be sold. So I find solace in going out in that field almost every day. It has a long trail and it goes almost all the way to the beach. I don't walk all that far because that's about 2 miles or 3 miles. But and if I go with anger, I get so upset with all the political world, and I forget it all and observe nature in action. I call it my roomy field. You go out in the field between right doing and wrong doing, and I think of that every day.
And you've written about it too. I remember a poem of yours. Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So Traci has something in the chat. I think culturally we reward and celebrate heroism in crisis and not caregivers, but both are essential, and art is a caregiving act. Beautiful.
Love that.
Yeah, Robbi, I think you're next.
Yeah,
Oh,
I want
maybe.
to say,
Yeah. Okay, Robbi, and then Ingrid. I'm so sorry. Yeah, got the order wrong. Go ahead, Robbi.
oh, okay. I wanted to say that for me, reading novels, especially speculative novels that delve into other worlds and other times, is inspiring, and it gives me hope. Even when it's dark, like Octavia Butler, I feel as though I know something that I didn't know before, and it's useful to me. But all kinds of art is an act of resistance against the darkness.
Thank you. Yes, Ingrid. And then we'll move on to our poems. You don't want to forget our poems.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just quickly, I am finding joy in filling my bird bath. I have a husband and wife pigeon pair who nest in my roof, and I live in the desert. It's very dry. So I rinse and fill the bird bath daily. And the two pigeons are now at the point where they perch on the patio overhang and watch me as I'm doing it, waiting for the moment when I'm done and they can get into that fresh water. So I'm not only finding joy from that, but here, particularly in Las Vegas, doing anything for pigeons is an act of resistance because of how they are treated here and how they're viewed. There's a lot of cruelty towards pigeons. So that's one small act that I'm doing where I am finding joy.
Thank you. Yeah, I love this idea of spending 3 minutes. Is it 3 minutes in a day or 3 minutes whenever you want to in a day, just noticing and focusing on the natural world? That really speaks to me. And another comment. Oh, yes, Robbi says she identifies with the put upon pigeon she's from Philadelphia. Yeah. So to shift gears a little bit, who would like to tell us? So here's the thing: if you volunteer to tell us more about how you came to write your poem that's in this book and what it means to you, then you might actually. What I'm hoping is that you'll get some love from us in terms of your poem and how we soak it in. So, does anyone want to volunteer to do that? We can just popcorn around. And Traci, yeah. Oh, thank you, Traci. Yeah.
I even prepared my visual aids before we started, since you sent this question ahead of time. But I had an artist in residence position at a national park, which is the one I have sort of pinned behind me so that people could see. But I made these tiny little pocket poetry field guides. So every day I would walk a different hike in the park, and I would just sort of open and random as I was pause and check in on my body and the dog and all of that. I would just sort of write these random lines. So the poem probably feels quite leapy because it wasn't written. The first line wasn't what I felt or thought first. I just sort of wrote randomly in these tiny poetry pocket field guides. So had fun just making them and decorating them, and that gave me joy of an aesthetic color joy that we don't get to play with the physical object of poems a lot, and this gave me a physical object and let the process feel beautiful, not just the final piece, I guess. And it fit in my pocket, and it let me take care of my body and my spirit by being out in the world and walking. And so I got to take care of my creative self and physical self and the dog all in the same moment. And so I just wanted to share a little piece of the process of how I sort of recorded each walk and how, one of the walks turned into the poem that's in the anthology.
Oh, could you put it up to the camera a little bit closer?
Okay.
Yeah, just so
they're just little 8-page journals that you make from a single piece of paper folded. And I would just,
gorgeous.
Doodle and write and pause at
Mhm.
each water stop. I would add a few little lines. And then I made a final book for the national park because you're supposed to give something, like give a gift. And so I made a little art book with, one of the poems in it for the national park as my thank you gift for the residency.
Yeah. So you're an artist too. Yeah, that's
No.
amazing. Yeah.
I'm so not an artist.
Well,
but I love
I would
color and I like
disagree
to
with that.
make. Yeah, I like beauty. I'm a poet. I like to make stuff and experiment, and I'm not good at it, but I think art requires more fearlessness than talent, I think. I was definitely the worst person in my poetry class as a college student, but I think I loved it the most. And I know that the word amateur means one who loves, not one who sucks at it. And so I endeavor to do all things in my life as an amateur, just
It's
love
so
and keep
great.
going,
Yeah, yeah, it can be so intimidating, but really, I think you're wrong about yourself that way, but um but I just thought your poem just really meant so much to me. The layers that are in here and some of the language and so you're starting off with the vultures and then you end up with the vultures. So were you out on a walk watching the vultures actually destroy this deer carcass? Is that what happens or what happened or
Yeah, they were there. I mean, I think the vultures are out a lot. And especially in a place of wilderness. Um, and what I remember most just about that walk is that it was a circle. A lot of trails, right? You go out and you retrace the way that you came. Um, and that's, so I was just really interested in this idea that I was just sir, you were just walking a big circle, and how, that's the process of life and death, becoming life again. And that is, um, all of the weather shifting above me. And it's one of the oldest ideas, right? Just that circle of life feeling. But also, I remember what was going on personally and the despair I felt while I was so deeply alone for those 2 weeks in the wilderness. Um, but I think also, time spent in nature is time spent um, with yourself, in the deepest way for me, and healing a little bit, but also feeling. Mostly what I remember is the despair, of walking the circle and trying to change and still ending up, like so many of our cycles, ending up back where we started. But
and
I am better than I was when I wrote the poem.
oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the title actually, I had to look it up, but the idea of fate, kind of, being fate being what it is, and that, these things are going to happen. And that's one philosophical point of view that from Rilke, I guess or Nietzsche, right? That, yeah, that fate is just going to happen and it's going to do what it's going to do. And then the way you make so much beauty, like the poppies getting away with murder, the stones slipping on their slow moss sweaters. I copied that line down because I just adore it. Um, and I am made new and still myself. Wow. Yeah. And that's what you were just saying. Yeah.
Yeah. How much
Yeah.
I wish change changed more. But also, you know, the things the Buddhists figured out a long time ago is that, desire is the root of suffering, and how often when our wishes are fulfilled, they aren't fulfilled in the ways that we wish, or it comes with, what is the idea of like gifts inherently contain their own punishments, like the Sultan who would give elephants as gifts because the care and upkeep you couldn't give away this gift because it had been bestowed upon you by your sultan, but then you had to pay for the upkeep and care for this gift. And I think about so many of our wishes this way, that desire leads us into trouble. So you might as well love
And how
what's
about greed, maybe? Do you think, yeah?
well, and to love what is meant for you, all parts of it, including the ending, and to deeply inhabit your life, because I'm not sure how much my wishing or worrying has ever changed a gall darn thing, right?
Yeah.
So I try to spend less time and energy wishing, regretting, worrying, and just letting my soul sit straight up in my body and being exactly where I am, in as much as that's possible,
Thank you.
when there's
Thank
so
you.
much to worry about and wish was different.
Yes, thank you for sure. Yeah. So yes, so now Robbi, can you raise your hand again so David can find you? And then we'll go to Mistee.
Yeah, so I sent it in response to a standing prompt for poets to send in poems inspired by articles in the newspaper, or journals, or whatever. And I knew that I had done something political when the editor rejected the poem roundly, saying that I had many dangerous ideas.
Wow. That's kind of a compliment, huh?
He didn't mean it as one, but I took it as one.
Right. Uh-huh. Well, luckily it's here with us now. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Mistee, does your hand raise
Well,
so David
I was
can
only,
find
I
you?
thought we were still talking about Traci's poem.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead. It's fine. We can popcorn around. We can handle
Okay.
that.
Well, I just wanted to go back to, I might even lost my train of thought.
You'll find it.
I guess I was thinking about reading Traci's poem. It's interesting to hear you talk about it, Traci, because I did feel like when I was reading it, there was this move there. It felt like the poem was moving forward, but then also moving back a little bit. And it made me feel by the end of the poem, like sometimes I don't know what a poem is about. And you had said that there's kind of some leaps in here, and there's a lot of leaps in here. So I like there wasn't like a real solid thread to find. But what I felt after finishing the poem, after reading it a couple times, is this letting go. And it's just one of those things that when you're out in nature, the natural world can teach us. And I just that's all. That's my comment on that.
Thanks. Yeah, I always like to make without a thesis in mind. Like I don't,
Yeah.
that's one way poetry is definitely not related to science to me. There's no investigative question when I start. I just make and see what it ends up saying. Um, and I know too, my partner is a theoretical physicist. And so we use a lot of metaphors to communicate, and that's like a strong connection I see between science and poetry. And I do think questions are at the root of what we all do. But astronomy was a common first date for us, given the physics and poetry thing. We didn't have a lot of other things to talk about, I guess. But he's the one who taught me to do averted vision. The more you try and pin the stars down with your eye and like see it really well, the worse your vision will get, the less it will be in view. And that in order to see the stars through the telescope, you have to let your vision go soft and look a little to the side of the stars. And if you just let yourself relax and see it a little soft, then all of a sudden it will come into view. And so I taught him how to listen like that to a poem. And so it's that thing about like often a poem can communicate before it's understood, or that
Yes.
hopefully there is something in the beauty or the rhythm or the
Right.
language that you feel is true, even if when you try and pin it with your eye, it kind of like squiggles out of view a little. And I think I'm kind of okay being a little unpin downable,
Yeah.
because I'm not sure what I mean half the time either. So
I love
But in
what you
terms of
said.
the project of this or this book and the project and like what this book is saying, like it fits right in this kind of just a letting go and what all of your observations being outdoors in nature can teach us.
Yeah, Robbi says that's why we write poems and not nonfiction books.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that one of the biggest compliments I felt was I have a friend, she says she doesn't know how to read poetry, and we've been getting together and reading poetry, and she was reading one of my poems out loud, and she said, I have no idea what this means. And then she just burst into tears, which to me was like pretty cool, far out. Not that she was crying, but you know what I mean. So, so who else? We had so many amazing poems. Does anybody else wanna say anything more about how you wrote your poem and what it means to you, Joe? Yeah. So David, Joe is raising his hand. There
Uh,
you go.
well, the poem in the anthology, that poem came about in a very unusual way, at least for me. I got an email out of the blue from someone in Kew Gardens in London asking me to write a poem for their redwood grove.
Wow.
And by the way, we'll pay you for it. And I said, okay. And I don't know how I seem to have, without trying, somehow developed a worldwide reputation as the redwood poet because I live in the redwood forest and I've written about several redwood poems, but I didn't know it had, reached Kew Gardens in London. So anyway, my mind immediately went blank. I
Of
froze.
course, yeah.
Um, I'd never been put on the spot like that. And I was just stuck. And finally, I asked my wife, well, what would you say about a redwood grove? And she said, they always seem to know what they're doing. And that clicked for me. And the whole poem grew up and down from that comment. But sometimes you need that spark, someone to break through. Anyway, they did. They took the poem and they put it on this giant billboard in their redwood grove.
Wow. What an
It was
honor.
wonderful. I
Wow,
don't believe it's there anymore, but this was during the pandemic, actually.
wow, that's just amazing. Isn't that amazing that they found you like that? Wow.
Yeah,
And now you're in this book too. Yeah. It's a really stately poem, you know. It does feel like a redwood tree, really.
yeah. Well, you talked about writing poems out of anger. This was po more written out of worship, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah.
but you know, I do write peace poems. It's usually my poems don't have an agenda, but once a month in February, I'm a member of a group of peace poets, and we send postcards to each other, and the theme is peace. And we write original poems and send them off as postcards. It's meaningful to me.
Hmm. So you're sending postcards to people you know or don't know?
People who are on the list of other poets who want to send postcards. It's not random by any means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's another way to really uh, feel better is to send a postcard to somebody on a list, you know, that and then maybe hear back from them or do some kind of a project where you reach out to somebody. Um, I don't know if anybody else has done that, but yeah. So who else? How about one of the editors? Do you want to talk about your poem, Luisa?
Sure. Thank you for the invitation. I
Yeah.
think as I said just before I read it, I must have been listening to some interesting article on public radio about bats and cows, and the bats feeding a little bit off of the blood of cows. And the article actually was the one that had the title using the French kissing analogy. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. I mean, the ability for something so mundane, perhaps, to be cast in a different light gave me a lot of narrative possibilities for running with it into a poem. And I guess my poem is really also about mutuality, those symbiotic relationships that we have with each other or creatures have with other creatures in nature. And I think that I've been writing a few of these kinds of poems. The title poem in my most recent single authored book, Call Bearer, also borrows this notion of symbiosis and how you see it in nature. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to give this poem also a little bit of levity in that sense, that when we're talking about relationships, like say relationships in nature, or the ways in which we depend on each other, we don't, even in writing poems, we don't have to be all serious all the time. I mean, it is serious, but it comes across in a way that also, I hope, conveys a certain delight in discovering another frame of reference. And for me, that certainly was the case.
Yes, the idea that of French kissing with a mouthful of blood is kind of, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, wow, you know. two bats doing that, they'd be really excited about that, right? Two people doing that, probably not so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. And Traci says it's visceral, that's for sure.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The uh, um, the line, but bats are only being true to their nature. I love that line. Yeah, and isn't that what we all want, is to be true to our own nature? What we're struggling so much. I struggle so much being true to who I am. Who am I anyway, right? But animals know, they just know that. It's kind of just with them. Yeah. Love is mutual sustenance, Aileen says.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, here I think I'm taking the image of blood and working it outside of its only scientific reference points. And I'm going into story and associations with story. Of course, when you think of bats, how can you not think of the Dracula stories, which
Right.
are, of course, also stories about desire and desires for different kinds of complicated things.
Right, right. So it's actually a fact that bats fly down on cows and drink. Really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a little article on NPR precisely about that.
Uh-huh.
And
Did
I thought,
anybody else
wow.
know that? That's so this is like a,
Robbi says she's nodding her head. Robbi
oh,
says she's seen it.
oh, okay, yeah. So this is like it's a scientific, natural, and kind of educational too. Yeah. It's,
Well, I always wondered, I mean, way before this poem, whether all bats suck blood. When I was really quite young, and I found out that there were only a couple of species that did that.
right.
And it was really much less lurid. Although this poem is quite lurid, it seemed kind of banal almost, in fact. Maybe because I was reading it in encyclopedias or something, but poems can give back the juice, if you will, to
Right,
this.
right. The sense of
Yes.
wonder.
Yes. Yeah. And I've always been obsessed with strange animals, and I write about them quite a lot. I have a poem about a binturong, for instance.
Everyone's
There was
muted.
this binturong that was kept in a pet store, and as though it were, because it looked kind of vicious and it smelled pretty bad. But it actually is, in fact, a vegetarian, and it was really cruel. So I took it as a indication of human beings' viciousness, not the animals, and wrote a poem about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that where everybody's muted, so I don't know where that's coming from. It's not here, so okay, maybe David took care of it. It's not from me, David. No. We're quiet as mice here. Yeah, wow. So
And Phyllis, can we ask another poet about their poem?
oh, please do. Yes. I just love it. Anything you want to do. We've got like half an hour, and we can just dive right in and do more. And I yes, so go ahead. But I did also want to say anything, anything more that we want to talk about, what this all means to us, in terms of our psyche, our soul, our emotions, our body, I think is also fair game for us to be talking about. Because it all fits together, right? So yeah, Perie, who do you want to ask?
Well, I wanted to ask Ingrid how she came up with the poem
Oh, right.
Union, and where that poem came from. I mean, I loved everybody's poems. I read everybody's poems.
Thank you.
I underlined certain things in everybody's poems that I loved. And I could ask the same question of everybody, but
Well, you could, right? You could read some of the lines too.
I love to hear people talk about their poems.
Yes.
So Ingrid, is Ingrid here?
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Can you raise your hand, Ingrid, just so David can find you?
Hi, Ingrid. So can you talk more about your poem Communion? I mean, how you came up with that title and
Sure, yeah. This poem actually comes from a real experience. I was raised on a farm in Minnesota, and this actually grew out of something that my brother and I used to do, where we would go out and play with earthworms. But what I wanted from the poem was to really call attention to some of these beings that we inhabit the earth with, that are often maybe overlooked or even vilified in a way, or considered dirty or gross in some ways. So I wanted to sort of convey this sense of awe and respect for these fellow beings that exist with us. So that was one piece of the poem. And then the other piece of the poem, which is, I think, problematizing these interactions that we have with our fellow beings, our fellow animals, in the sense that this poem is written from a very human-centric perspective. And it does not contain the perspective of the earthworm. And it's certainly not a benign event in this worm's life to be dragged out of your home and then played with and then put back. So that's something that I think, while I wanted to really address sort of the sense of awe that we can get from interactions with other creatures, there's also this problem with these interactions as well, in that how these interactions are conducted and who benefits from them and who suffers from them is also an important part of that equation. So yeah, that's
well, I just was fascinated with how this slimy little worm we watch come up, especially after it rains, can slip down into the earth where we all supposedly go when we die. And I just thought it was all those things you're saying right now really drew me to your poem. I come from a Catholic background, so communion means, taking the body and blood of Christ, right? And I'm going, well, I love that comparison that you made, that what is that line I write? The soil shaped and unshaped, the netherworld beneath our feet. I thought that was, I enjoyed that a lot.
Thank you.
And I have a sister in Minnesota. I know all about Minnesota, so maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah, I like to think the poem kind of has a Midwest feel to it, but I think also maybe there's room for,
Yeah.
I mean, these worms exist everywhere. And the idea behind communion, I mean, I think I was with that title thinking about tapping into that kind of spirituality and sense of awe, and also connecting to that netherworld as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I really was into the sensual, the physicality of the worms, and how something that is, that we as adults probably think of as kind of gross, but the way you write about them, it's the mucoid segments curling between her
Right.
fingers.
That's a great phrase.
It's so sensual, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Mistee.
I mean, I put this in the chat a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think it's interesting, Perie, that you were asking Ingrid about her poem, because as I was reading our poems in preparation for this, I was thinking about how you two actually have a conversation between your poems, or you have some shared similarities, where it's, as Ingrid's title, there's this communion with siblings, with a shared experience in nature. And then interesting, Ingrid, that you would bring up we're not seeing the perspective of an earthworm being dragged out of its little environment and handled. And Perie, in your poem, the speaker is talking about how the cranes don't want to be captured and keep flying away. So it's interesting that I just made that connection. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that connection. And I was thinking about that actually too, as Perie, as you were reading your poem, I was thinking, it's really well placed having those poems in proximity. So yeah, I think that is a connection that can be made, and also speaks to the wonderful skill of our editors for putting them in proximity to each other.
Yeah, I wonder if they actually thought of that, but we can ask them if we want.
I think certainly placement was probably something that occupied a lot of your time as you were putting together this anthology. And is that something that you can speak to a little bit more in terms of how you placed poems in proximity to one another, or perhaps in conversation to one another?
There's a lot that can be said. Aileen, do you want to start?
Pass it along, yeah.
Or I guess either one of us.
Yeah, no, I'm just playing with you. Yeah.
I felt like it really was a very thoughtful process. We gave a lot of time to the process of reading more than once. Each one of us, I think, did 3 rounds. And when we decided on the kind of framework we would like to lay out for the book, those sections that we took from the National Nature Assessment, we felt we had a good arrangement, overall arrangement, and then we tried to see which among the poems was speaking to those kinds of concerns. In deciding which went where, and in deciding which ones to go in the book or leave on the online gallery, we also wanted to see which ones were doing a little, slightly more maybe original or innovative approaches to the subject. We tried to see which ones were maybe repeating similar things or the same things. And then, so that's part of the winnowing process. And then I think just trying out arrangements to see if in reading them over again, the poems felt like they were, in a way, calling to each other also, to be right where they're supposed to be or where they landed in the final roster of poems as they appear in the contents. Aileen, do you want to add to that?
Oh, you're muted, Aileen. You're muted. Oh, oops.
With the section on heritage, for example, it's not just about what came before us, but it's the poems tackle what keeps happening through us, and which is why, for example, the poem Communion, to me, it evoked inherited ways of engaging with the land, and so it suggests continuity for me, and we made sure that the poems that come before it and that follow it are in conversation with those themes.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think for the opening poems for each section and also to the entire book, we were looking for poems that had a strong sense of like certain questions that they were tangling with or thinking about. And also for poems at the ends of sections, we wanted to see if something in the poem could provide a sort of bridge to what we were considering in the next section. So it took a lot of time, and it takes a lot of like reading more intimately into into the depths of each poem. You're not just going by what is the poem's subject or what is the title of the poem, because you really can't tell where the poem is really going just from the title of the poem alone.
Yeah, this is probably where the prize winning comes in, all of these things that you're doing, so many different facets. And it's another way to look at the book, to read the book in terms of how the poems are ordered. So I'm just noticing it. I want to see if Caroline and Aileen want to talk about their poems. I would love to. And before we finish up, so and I don't know, Caroline, would you like to? And then
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, I thought I was your poem and my poem had to me they had some similarity just in terms of using that anaphora that
Mm-hmm.
but I was so curious about was your poem. I have to look for it here. Let me find it.
286.
Yeah, thank you. So the title, I was wondering about
Yeah.
the title and also the dedication and what that meant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so
it feels
please,
like, I'm so grateful that this poem is in here in the sort of the future bright spot now and in the future bright spots. Because for me, it feels like a poem that's kind of private, or I know what it means, right? But I love list poems. I love anaphora. I love that sort of lull that I get into. And I think we heard some today, like Joe's because repeating the word because, but for me, this poem is kind of about being on a recovery journey from addiction. And so Tony and Dustin are two fellow travelers on my road with me of recovering from addiction, but they also work as auto mechanics. So it's a very private reference to some pals of mine who live in San Mateo County and work on cars, and who I love and admire. And also kind of this idea of like the nuts and bolts of how does it actually work when you are chasing something. Like, I think much of our current climate crisis is because we're not happy. We keep chasing the buzz or the perfection or the moment when we feel peaceful. And learning over time for me as a humanoid to stop that activity, which never gets satisfied, right? So I think I start with images around like I guess like drugs and alcohol, but also how we just sort of keep going, and we find our way if we keep sort of making the choice to leave the thing or accept that we don't arrive. We all we really have is this moment to be in our bodies and to appreciate things like being at a fire, or feeling sand, or looking at, I mean, I feel so lucky that I live in a place where I get to look at these beautiful old cypress trees. Um and also I'm sort of fascinated with the weird things in nature, like gills are always weird. And then, the backside of a fern is weird with those little spores lining up like that. Like, so yeah, that maybe unpacks it, but I still don't really know for sure. But I appreciate being able to talk about it.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, anybody else have some thoughts or comments? It's on page 286.
Well, can I say a little bit
Yeah,
about what I
Louisa.
saw in this poem?
Yeah, Louisa.
It's titled The Mechanics, and you may be talking about friends who have that as a profession. But I was also thinking about it as the mechanics of guiding our reading and seeing into each moment of the poem. Because what you did in your scrutiny with each couplet made me go more deeply into those individual moments that made up the whole of something bigger. And so there are those moments of wreckage, but I love how they are also yoked to some other things that are actually very iridescent or very resplendent. So that for me, I think, was what I saw in your poem.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Oh,
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
yeah, it's one of those poems that really, I've underlined almost every line because of all the images are just so, so compelling. The underside, the hank of black beads. Yeah.
You know that the last line too,
Perie, yeah.
Phyllis,
Mhm.
now that you're talking about it, is which kind of sums up everything you both have been saying. Lying in its finery, in its wrecked wings,
Mhm.
And that made me think of when you go to a funeral parlor, and they're lying there, those that are full body, and they make them up, and there they are, lying all dressed up, and whatever
Mhm.
they do to the face and everything to make them look alive in their wrecked wings. To me, I was really thought it was a brilliant ending to this poem and everything you were doing with it.
Yeah, it's kind of a gaspy, like
Right.
ending. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So Aileen says like a catalog of belonging.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah. So much in each one of these poems. Yeah.
And you'll never look at a screw gun the same again after this.
Right.
I think I also am really guided by sound. And so, but I sure appreciate the chance to be here with it.
So Misty says, I love the title, The Mechanics, because I saw it as both nouns and verbs. And then Ingrid says that final image was a gut punch. So powerful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So Aileen, would you like to say something about your poem? You don't have to, but
Well, Half Moon Bay is one of my favorite places. And I love the ocean, especially it reminds it con I feel it connects me um with my birthplace, the Philippines. So my poem, I think, works through halves. I wanted to portray nature as sort of process and labor. Um, and I wanted, but then at the same time, I wanted to tell this story where we work towards hope through daily practice, and I wanted to refuse. I wanted the final image to not to be more about adapting, I think.
yeah, let me find it here in the book. Yeah. Oh, I love the shape of the beach there. And how you and then the sea star that's lost its arms, and that the beach is kind of like not an arm really, but yeah. Um
And also um, keep in mind that shorelines are not stable territories. And so I wanted the poem to be about this place um, where uh, everything keeps negotiating its place.
Yeah, the first lines, there are all these halves at the edge of the sea, like half a heart. So that, that to me is like the Half Moon Bay. I love that. of shore, briefly cradling a sea star that has bravely lost its arms. It's really beautiful. And that, yeah, the feeling of that, it's both really comforting, but there's also a lot of grief there too. Yeah. Makes me want to go to the ocean. Yeah, we don't live that far away, but yeah, it is sort of a sacred, it's like a journey to get there, right? Unless you live right there. Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah, Traci just went out to get the dog and to let the dog out. She'll be back. Oh, Misty says, I found your poem, Aileen, to be both about loss and abundance. Yes, all the halves, the receding tide, but what is left in its wake for the plover and the swelling of the wave coming back. Yes, yes, thank you, Misty. You say that really well. And I wrote down the abundance of sustenance. So that was something I was thinking about there too. Well, you know what? I think we've kind of reached a resting point.
Phyllis, you haven't talked about your poem.
Oh, oh wow, thank you. I forgot. I wasn't sure there was that much more to say about mine. I can talk about it a little if you like.
Yes.
All right. Well, yeah, I was thinking, well, gosh, it's, mine's so straightforward in a way. Yeah, I mean, it's I can tell you that I had another poem that I had worked on. I put it away for quite a long time, and then I took it out and I just ripped it up and made it into this. So there was something maybe about the ripping it up that's in there. And oh, welcome back, Traci. And also yeah, this sense of war and troops, and it's just very unsettling. I guess I must have known that, well, Ukraine was already happening, but yeah, and now more. But yeah, just that feeling of the weather being like that. It's our enemy in a way, And how did we get to that? We did it. We made it that way. So on that depressing note, I don't know if anybody has
Well,
any other thoughts yeah, go
um,
ahead, Luisa.
because David isn't here, was not able to join us, I would just like to remind people to take a look again at his poem, which is on page 48. It's called Pledge, a community poem, which he has an epigraph there or a note saying the lines here are compiled from writing workshop participants at the March for Science Education Summit in 2018. And I think besides all the one beautiful naming that the poem does. It is a catalog of all these wonderful things in nature. The last stanza was also probably a great answer to, was it your question earlier, Misty? What can we do? Was
That
that
was
you?
me
Yeah.
too. Yes,
The
both of
last
us.
stanza goes, I pledge allegiance to people everywhere and the potential we represent for social change, for justice, for science and service for all. So
Mm.
that community perspective, I think, is tied in so well in his poem. And that's what we were trying to do with the book too.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that I missed that. And
No,
we could have read the whole poem, right?
it's okay. No.
Yeah, it's really good that you point that out. Yeah, so well, thanks, Carolyn, for your comment. I'm glad you liked the title of my poem and the sounds. Yeah, that was really kind of fun part of it for me too.
Well,
So
also, Phyllis, it's a very serious poem. Living in Southern California, where we have all these fires,
right.
and the weather is getting hotter and hotter, and the hotter it gets, and then the more politics just sort of, oh, that's just weather, so that they can continue doing all the terrible things to the world, that's creating this mess. So I thought your poem was brilliant, and the weather just kept coming, and it was like, this is an important poem.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. Well, this is an important book, and I just what I want to do, as a way to finish up is just to see, yeah, if anybody else has anything they want to say in general, or um, um, I'm just really so happy that we did this. It's just very exciting to me, and everybody's been just terrific, and as I expected, all the comments and the way that we worked on it together is really wonderful. So I feel like now I've met the people here who I haven't met before, and that brings us together in another really beautiful way. So, um, yeah. So and Traci says, I really appreciate all the iterations and community that have sprung up around this project. And yeah, thank you for that. And actually, tomorrow you're doing another reading, right? With the oh gosh, Poets House, is that? Yeah, which is a really prestigious place to read. That's just phenomenal. So yay, yeah. So do you want to, I don't know if you want to put that in the chat, what the link is to that, or if you have it. Um and there's going to be just totally different readers at that one. So it should be really, really,
Aileen,
really
do you have the
great.
link handy? So I'm like flailing around on my desktop. I have too many things open.
Yeah, we can all relate to that. Well, just look up Poet's House, right? It's Poet's House. You can search that online.
I think this one is we already did a reading for Poets House. I think this one is the Poets Corner.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry for the mistake. Yeah. Okay. Well, then we can watch the Poet's House one. It should be, or maybe it'll come online, and the Poet's Corner. So you're getting a lot of readings, yes, for the book, and that's really important. Really, really important.
And I think
So
there will be a couple more throughout April and also leading up to Earth Day on April 22.
yes. Yeah. So sometimes I think of a poem. I didn't do that this time. I was so intent on the conversation. A poem that could take us out, that we could end with. Can anyone think of something off the top of your head that would be good for us to finish and close on?
I could read Kathy's poem.
Oh, good idea. That sounds like a really good idea. Kathy
But
Wald.
by
Thank
the
you.
way,
Oh, that's a
I
wonderful.
heard back from her and she said she just got back from Italy yesterday and she's all confused about time.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, yes, that good for her. Yeah. So, yeah, so Kathy's poem, Kathy writes a lot about fairy tales.
Yeah.
Or she writes in a fairy tale voice. Yeah, that's a great idea, Misty. And then we'll just close with that.
Okay.
So thanks everybody so much. It's been just beautiful, really. I appreciated you all so much. Misty, yeah.
Okay.
Take it away.
The lake froze. Long ago, before we let our bluegrass go to seed, windows were still made of blown glass. Before the plague of aquamarine algae and the murder of the crows, there was a season called winter, a time of glistening ice and strangely shaped salt crystals. The lake froze. We drove our trucks across it, chopped a hole, and dropped fishing lines. We could light fires. Yes, it's true, that's how thick the ice was. Even the stars stuck to the frigid skies. We huddled together, sang folk songs of formerly colonized principalities, passed a bottle, and belched. Dried cattails rattled in the wind. Every now and then we landed a perch, threw it back. I wanted to explain this to the children. I pointed out the goldfish in the aquarium at the dentist's office. I pulled ice from the freezer to rub on their palms and cheeks. I showed them how to throw frozen tennis balls against the wall, asked them to imagine whizzing across a blue-black meadow with blades on their feet. I explained that fish weren't farmed in those days, but swam free range, eating native grasses and duckweed. The children said, "What's a meadow?"